All right, thanks, Tim. Let's go to Personnel Advisory Council. Anything?
No, nothing on personnel right now. We're finalizing reduction in force order with the union this week. And then prior to the March 14th meeting when we vote, I believe that's the date, I will convene the advisory council for personnel just to give them an update of the reductions in certified staff.
Okay, and now Policy Committee?
You know, just to keep this brief, I know we have some items we need to discuss in closed session. Policy in regards to packet 78, attached to your top copy is what the Policy Council is recommending with this changes. If there's changes, we've included them. If not, it's as written. I would ask that the board review these. I would think that we're okay for the next 2 weeks to not adopt anything, that even though it says adopt as soon as possible for immediate adoption, we're going to be adopting this in March. I think we can go an additional 2 weeks. So you can review all this. Mr. Walsh and I worked on this on Friday. We think we did a thorough check, and unless there's questions that you have on any of our recommended changes, you can review this. We can just vote on these as maybe even a consent agenda item at the next meeting if there's no additional questions.
So everything we need is in this envelope for this meeting?
Right.
Yeah.
It's the first read you got. So if what you have attached is what we're changing, if it's not, it's in that first original read that we're adopting as the recommended changes. And you got that last month.
It might be worth knowing that the majority of these changes were to comply with changes in the law. And that if you look at, you know, Kevin did a nice job, of Mary Ann, of putting together the few that we're recommending changes to. So you might want to look at those a little closer, because that'd be different than what the IASB suggested.
What we have are the ones that you're recommending changes to in this envelope.
In your handout, right?
Because the rest of what you got in the package.
And the ones with no changes are in the prior envelope?
Yes,
Right.
yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, any questions on policy? All right, seeing none, we're going to go to our next item on the agenda, visitors' comments. Anybody want to speak over?
We got a good
Handbook, right? John?
handbook, John, real quick.
Oh, John.
Poor guy sat here through that whole finance
Talk through your hand.
lecture.
Come on, talk about it.
He found that fast.
He became a better man because of it. Okay, John.
I don't know what type of format, how you like to go about addressing some of the questions that were presented.
Well, first of all, John and Pam, maybe just update the board on your committee. That
Sure.
What's the makeup of that committee?
Well, what is typically, this year, the committee includes students, staff, parents, and in some cases, parents are board members. You know, so this year, you know, as I don't have that memo in front of me. No, Mr.
That's okay, we have it. We see
Oh.
that Mr. Bronson and Matt
Yes,
Sagnan and...
It was actually nice to have parents of incoming freshmen, and I've already solicited them to be on the committee for next year. When you understand the process a little bit, it makes the committee run a little smoother in the sense of understanding what you're attempting to accomplish.
And John, what I asked you to do is create just more or less a summary of things that are changing, whether they're added, update, change, or delete.
Correct.
And then we had a few board member questions.
You bet.
The reason I placed this under policy is John has a working committee on this. He then consults with Pam on changes. And then through the committee and through the building administration, then we bring the final one to the board to adopt in April so that they can print it out for next school year. So these are more or less the day-to-day rules that and procedures that help govern the building.
And just as the board has its organization that assists with keeping up with legal mandates and alterations in legislation, John is also associated with our organization, the Illinois Principals Association, which has a lawyer that represents us as well, and he keeps us up on the changes that have to be in here and to make sure that we are accurate. And I think, John, you also use the handbook. There's a model handbook.
Correct. The IPA, Illinois Principals
IPA,
Association,
right.
driven by Brian Schwartz, the IPA attorney, is what drives this. And Illinois School Code also drives some of this. And and that will address some of the questions that were presented by Mr. Walsh. I could speak to those if you would like.
Well, some of them are editorial, you don't have to go
Well,
through those.
but I appreciate, your observation, because some of them are new, and what drives that is what's taking place, and so some of those are driven by, in a sense, technology, and what drives the technology and what students are doing and exposing themselves to, and ultimately placing themselves in situations where, in fact, they might be violating the law, and it's really based on the phone use with their cell phones. Mm-hmm. And so the document you have in front of you reflects that in a section called sexting. So that's what referenced that. That language is from the IPA's seminars, where in fact they present you and offer you that opportunity to use their language written by their attorneys or our attorneys, because that is a new component. Unfortunately, that's not the only thing they're doing, but unfortunately students are placing themselves in a situation where it's not the best, and very good questions that were presented, and in some cases it's grammatical and an insertion of a word or two, but
Well, let me just add, on the medical thing, that's up to you, but if somebody is, off, whatever, it's not a medical reason for 5 days,
Yes, sir.
and then they're sick on a 6th day, do they still need a doctor?
no, sir, because the
Okay.
5 days of unexcused, if they're unexcused, they're considered truant,
Okay.
and they would be addressed differently by the dean if in fact that is the case.
John, I had a question. What is the last date both you and Pam need this? Because, I see that there's in there about our pay to participate format, and it talks about $75 a sport, and we would want that updated to the board. So, are we saying that in April, I think it's the April action meeting is when we're going to approve this handbook?
It's okay.
Should we have the fees then, so that we can have that language dumped in there?
I mean, I can get the exact date because of the company we're currently using. They have a deadline for us to receive the document, which is really strengthened so that we have it in the student's hands by day one, because it's critical. And this is something that Pam implemented upon her arrival, is the signing off of the receipt of this document on day one.
Right.
And it is critical students have that. However, keep this in mind. Any of the information that we're putting in here, if we change it, the disclaimer, I believe it's on literally page 2 or 3, that if we have to change it, may be done, and then just update it on the website. So if some of those items, for example, the fee waiver, and you're processing that and going through that over the summer, or whatever it may take, if it goes beyond the deadline, that's okay. It's the gist of the entire handbook, and really the discipline section that is really critical to the board and the district and my office in doing this job.
John, as you know, we're working on, and we spent a lot of time on the operational calendar. What I want to eventually work with the board is so that we're not making decisions in July that are going to impact the first day in August, and then the administration has to scramble to try to update parents.
I appreciate that.
So that's why, if we know that in April we need to approve the handbook and we need to approve fees, then I will prepare the board with their information so that they have to make a decision by April.
I could get you that date tomorrow,
Okay.
Dr. Skinkis, because it is a specific deadline when, in fact, we need to get it to the printer so we can get their version of, or interpretation of what we've given them. We need to review it prior to it going to publication.
Okay.
Because it's critical that we make sure that they have inserted what we need to. Think over the last few years, when Dr. Burnett was here, is when a massive or a major revision was done with a few board members on that committee at the time. And so we're just really tweaking. It's a living document from day one when my office receives that. The revisions begin on how we can apply it and enforce it.
All right, so if you could let us know the date.
I can let Dr. Skinkis know that tomorrow.
I think that was the very first question I asked
Yeah.
at the meeting. What's the drop-down date for the
Yeah.
board, and
Yeah.
get it to them weeks ahead of time?
Right.
So I
That's why
appreciate
we're
it.
seeing it today.
Yeah, I appreciate getting this to now, because it is going to make life a lot easier on our
Look at this, finalize and make any, right?
Yeah, it doesn't, I mean, I hate that he came here and didn't, but.
No,
let me
it's
just
all right.
2 points.
I
One is,
appreciate
the pay to participate is quite different than what I think we approved.
Well, I think,
So I think you should make it match. And
Yeah,
I
I-
don't remember like $50 late fee either.
well, that's something I spoke with, and I'll defer to you in a second, Tim, if I may. I spoke to Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Ostro about making sure that we're all on the same page, and I will defer to you because it is your department, and we had some discussion about this.
I think the late fee has been there for a number of years, and it's said on the statements that a late fee may be assessed It just was never assessed.
Well,
This year we
just-
started assessing
We just
it.
implemented pay to participate this year, though.
Well, this is just, that's on all fees.
Any fee somebody pays late, there's a $50 fee.
It's on the form.
Overall, I mean, that money can be refunded, like on a pay to
Oh.
participate. It depends on if they drop classes or things along those
It's
lines.
been on there is what I
Money
was
can be
informed.
Yeah.
refunded, but, yeah.
There's another
I mean,
revenue source.
the other thing is just to think, I mean, we had the same issue when we, implemented policy, like, it's against the rules to have pornography on our computers, but one problem is sometimes you don't know you get an email till you open it.
It's a great question.
So that was one of my concerns with this whole sexting.
And I
thing.
appreciate that.
Somebody sends a picture and the kid didn't even want to get it or see it. I hope there's some judgment on
Well,
whether they're going to be punished.
If I may, I was just at our law conference, and they spoke to that specifically in the session I was in, and it's pretty scary what the law says.
Oh,
It's pretty black and white what the law says.
okay.
And that language is driven by lawyers who in fact are facing cases where students a student will receive a sexting message, and then, if I may use the term, sharing it with others. I don't want to get into it
Yeah,
much right now, but not the context of it, but as far as what that sharing means to the lawyers.
Okay.
And how you go about prosecuting. We remind students, however, so we don't surprise them with that, is the seriousness of just that, sexting, and the implication it can have for life.
And just so that you know, that on March 19th is our Internet Safety Day, and we will be covering this with our students, so we try to educate them so
And we're
they
looking
can
to
be
move that
wise.
towards the beginning of the school next year.
It's critical.
Yeah,
Do it
we do
earlier.
talk about it, kind of broadly and at the beginning, but we're gonna get into very specific details at all the different levels. There's a curriculum, and that is covered, so that students are
It was
aware.
a tough question at the law conference, the sexting and the legal implications of what that sharing really means. It's pretty
And we're
scary.
including handheld devices, we're talking about internet safety, but we're also including all the handheld devices,
Any receiver?
smartphones,
Any receiver.
tablets, anything.
Sure.
Any other questions for John?
Yeah,
John, if you,
I got
please
a
on
question
page,
for you.
oh, sorry,
Go
go ahead.
ahead. Go ahead. I defer.
Page 20, under academic dishonesty consequences, could you just explain what you're doing there?
Well, basically, do you have a specific one, Dr. King, or just in general?
Your changes that you want to
Oh,
remove the
basically
state.
the changes,
Yeah.
is it was noted at the committee level, it's just the removal. If the second offense is when the child is removed from that organization, how could, they're already gone, how could
Right,
they
so
be,
it's just a
there'd be a
typo.
third, so there wouldn't be a
Okay, so-
third opportunity.
So right now, they have, the second offense, they're gone, they're
Yes, sir.
given one offense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Dan?
It's maybe just a housekeeping thing, but I noticed that you use a trade name, iPods, instead of a timeless generic terminology for entertainment. Why do you choose to use a trade name?
I gotta be honest, with you, I didn't realize it was a trade name, and we could
It
review
is.
that.
Well, it's owned by
Electronic
Apple.
device.
Electronic device would work, because I want to have an.
You could come
something
up
that all
with
encompasses.
personal electronic
No, I appreciate
entertainment.
that.
Isn't it a PDA?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you-
No,
Personal
No,
digital
Person-
device?
no, an iPod is,
PED, personal electronic.
I will definitely review that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah,
It's
because-
interesting that you say that. Looking at other handbooks,
still
so
use
they all
a
listed as
Walkman.
iPods, so they didn't catch that.
but you can include iPod, you might have to put the
Such as-
trademark signal.
such as but not
signal.
limited
I say
to.
we
Yeah,
just
if you
go
did, you're
electronic
right,
device.
you're right.
John.
Right.
It works.
John, thanks a lot for your update,
Thanks a
and we'll
lot,
come
John.
back to you.
Right, right.
So John, do you need any more feedback from this group, or do you, at March Committee of the Whole, I'll have it on there, but I think Pam could feel that there's any other changes, but is your committee pretty much
Yes,
set on
sir.
the changes you're recommending?
Yes, sir. And we're at
So
a point right now, and I'm very pleased to say, and there was a little bit of confusion, on the front end with the process, but I'll be honest with you, I'm glad we're doing it this early. It gives us an opportunity to really have a chance for the board to really scrutinize at a level that we never have.
So my
and,
question would be
participate.
then, is since there's a committee with parents, students, administration, and staff, and there was a board member represented on it, do we need to take that document again one more time to the policy council, or is the board as a majority feel that having that committee established, are they comfortable voting on that in April?
Matt, I
Let's
don't
let's
see
bring it
any-
up with
I
Kyle
read
again if
about
there's
that.
any other questions, and then you're ready to go in April.
So So we'll just touch base on it at the public meeting
Yeah.
in March, the town meeting, and if not, we'll vote on it in April.
Thanks, John, good job.
Thank you,
As far-
John.
Thank you,
As far as
John.
giving them any more feedback, obviously, you know, it's a living document. Anytime
Yeah.
you have a question or need some clarification, he has an email address, send it right over.
Please.
He'll add it to his.
Send it to me and I could forward it to John.
Yeah, if you email me, I'm gonna kick it back to Dr.
Send it to me,
Steve.
then I can send it to John.
Yeah,
All right,
because
thank you, John.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much,
John.
all of you.
Anybody want, we have now visitors' comments, anybody want to speak over here? All right, seeing none, we're going to go into closed session in which we'll talk about appointments, retirement, RVEA, and litigation. Do I have a motion to go into closed? Oh, additionally, we will be downstairs in the district conference room. So,
resolved that the Board of
I'm sorry,
Education.
can I say one thing? Just looking back at last year of what was presented by Pam and Art and Kevin, I mean, it's, you know, I don't want to say it's 100% improvement, but I mean, it's so much more organized, and I really want to commend both you guys for what you did and making it so easy to understand.
Thank you.
okay, do I have a motion then?
Resolved that the Board of Education, Township High School District 208, Cook County, Illinois, enters closed session for the purpose of considering appointment or dismissal of employees, collective bargaining issues, and litigation.
Second.
Second by Dan Moon. Anybody have discussion? Mary Ann?
Mr. Gretchen?
Aye.
Mr. Prescott? Dr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Moon?
Good.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Welch?
Yes.
Mr. Simi?
Yes. Okay, let's move downstairs. It is
Sealed the way that we do.
10:23. I'd like to start by 10:35, the latest.